Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the 1916 Company for pricing. If you have questions about the pricing of this watch, reach out to us, tmosso at the 1916company.com. So today we discuss a 2012 launch that pays tribute to watches made by Breitling during the middle of the 20th century. This is the Transocean Chronograph, and is the Transocean Chronograph Unitime, recovering a term used back in the 1950s for Breitling world time watches. So the chronograph Unitime takes the Transocean design, which is mid-century inspired, although modern sized, as this is a 46mm watch, and then you add the Unitime capabilities, so you've got world time and chrono all in one chronometer certified package. It is a feature-rich watch. Now, being part of the 2010s and Schneider family era Breitling, it's big. But you can see it's a big version of a classic design, 46 in diameter in pink gold. It is 15.3 millimeters thick, 58.1 millimeters lug-to-lug with a 24mm spacing between the lugs. The dial is a lot like the 1260 Unitime reference of the 1950s. And you can see on my wrist, it's a lot bigger than any 1950s watch. This is just a little bit too big for me. My wrist is 16 centimeters circumference, and I think you need a wrist of 17 or larger to really wear this well. So that's my recommendation. It's not as thick as it could be given all the features, but I would say you're safe with a jacket cuff. Maybe the tightest dress shirts could get hung up, but you should be okay with a sleeve, provided your wrist is already large enough for the watch. Taking a look at the strap, you can see we've got this textile pattern up on the top with a stitch, but it's a rubber strap. And you can see on the bottom that it has little hollows molded into it. So it's actually more flexible than you think and quite comfortable. It is pre-scored on both sides. This is a strap designed to be cut to length, and being a brand new strap, we will be able to cut this perfectly to suit you. Inside the clasp, there are 4 pairs of divots that have been drilled through, and use those with your strap tool to change the anchoring point. So even after you cut it, there's a little bit of adjustability that is still accessible if you want to move the anchoring point of the strap in the clasp. It is a single fold clasp. You can see inside mostly polished pink gold, and then a clamshell lock right there. Breitling reminding you that they were founded in 1884. And then we've got a case designed with some references to history. So we got a cylindrical case profile. I'll bring in my polishing cloth to get rid of some of these surly fingerprints. But we've got this cylindrical case. We have slightly stepped lugs. You can see that they're not completely integrated. And then if you look carefully, you can see that there's a soft bezel, or bevel, I should say, that starts at the bezel. So right here, the bevel at the bezel is relatively narrow, and then it expands as it moves towards the edge of the lug. We have Breitling's B logo on the crown, vintage-inspired pump-style pushers. The bezel is stepped in a little bit. It's conical for the most part, but then it flattens where it abuts the sapphire, which has a dramatic camber to it and a boxed profile to look like a vintage plexiglass. Again, we want to remind you of the mid-century Transoceans, and of course the Unitime in particular, which is why you also have on the reverse side the mid-century abstract Breitling double aircraft logo in a media blasted recess on the case back. Jumping back to the dial though, this is a true world time watch. It uses the Louis Cotier system, first introduced in the 1930s. So you have 24 reference cities representing the principal 24 time zones of the world. Yes, there are more. We're just talking about the principal zones. Now, where you see that little red sun and a triangular index, that indicates that that is a place where summertime and wintertime, so basically standard and daylight savings, that indicates a city where those are utilized. So for example, you might want with New York not to jump between city and city necessarily, but just remember that if New York is your primary, you have 2 positions, one of which overlaps with Puerto Rico. Okay, so now you can see I gave the game away a little bit. As you make adjustments to your city, the local hour changes. So you put your reference city up at the top. The easy way to remember this is your reference city is right set up, so it's not going to be at 6 o'clock. Now let's say London is my local time, and I want to know whether it is, for example, 8 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock in the morning in London. Well, that's easy. I could see it's 8, but I can also see that the number next to London is 20, so that's 8 at night. On the other side of the world, Auckland, New Zealand, it is 8 a.m. In Beijing, it's 4 a.m. That's how you read it. You read the 24-hour counterclockwise rotating reference ring next to the city, and then the minutes are always constant at center. Now, if you want to make adjustments without using the quick set position, let's say you don't want to change your city of reference. Now you can see that the hands move in the opposite direction of the reference ring, so that's just something to remember. The watch features that intermediate position where you can make those stepped adjustments, and keep in mind that if you want to set the date, this is the way you do it. Now at center we have a image of the globe. We also have countersunken registers. These little striations, people ask me, what are these? Those are a reference to 1940s and 1950s style Breitling chronographs. Back when international calls long distance were billed in 3-minute increments, the minute registers on a chronograph would always have 3, 6, and 9. So that's what is there. That's why they are there. And again, this is a mid-century inspired watch, so you know why they've been placed. The watch does have luminescent material. Let's take a look at that right now. And then it has applique indices and rose gold plated hands, so it's got a more premium dial than the historic ones would have. This uses what's known as a B05. So B05 is the world time version of the B01 in-house chronograph caliber. Now you can see two things on the case back. 1, water resistant to 100 meters, so you can swim with it. 2, this chronograph is a certified COSC chronometer, tested, certified in the 5-position multi-temperature test as a bare movement, and then that certified chronometer inserted into the case. Its technical specs include automatic winding, a 70-hour power reserve, a 4 Hz beat rate. It features 56 pivot jewels. It's probably one of the most complicated versions the B01 ever made. And in addition to stop seconds and the world time, you can see it does have that hacking function. It also features a chronograph with a column wheel for super tactile impressions and a sharp click to it. It's a really excellent column wheel. And then vertical clutch. So you can see when I start the chronograph, there's no jump or extraneous movement to the seconds hand because there's no play in a vertical clutch. Another advantage of the vertical clutch, if you want, you can just leave it running full time. There's no additional hazard or wear and tear to the movement while leaving a vertical clutch running full time. And again, it is almost a 3-day power reserve with 70 hours of power reserve. This watch can be yours. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916 Company for purchase and pricing details.